Okay, you want to say your name?
My name is Chris Christophel.
Perfect. Let's see.
Pull it up. Yep, there you go.
All right, so we'll start with just a little introduction. What is your name?
My name is Chris Christophel.
How old are you?
I just turned 82.
Well, happy late birthday. How do you identify? And these can be any identity markers that you feel are important.
Non-binary, lesbian. I guess that's it.
Awesome. What pronouns do you use?
Any?
Any? Cool. That's great. Thank you. So, this is a really broad question, but what experiences have you had with activist groups?
Well, I've been in the 60s, the 70s, and 80s, 90s, 2000. I was very active in many activist groups. I was active in the Names Project. I was active in the local AIDS things going on here. I was active in my memory sometimes goes on me, but
You're fine. Take your time.
I just remember picketing in Washington, D.C. ACT UP.
Oh, okay, yes. Yes.
And also active here in terms of marching for pride and marching for gay rights. And was a member of NOW and active in women's rights. And I'm sure there's some others.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a lot of activity. When did you first move to Fayetteville?
Moved to Fayetteville in January of 1986.
Cool.
I retired from IBM after 20 years. And I looked all over the United States. I knew I wanted to retire in the States. And was looking at several different places to retire. Chose Fayetteville because they had a good men's and women's community at that time that really worked together. Unfortunately, that's not so true today. But that was my reason for choosing Fayetteville. And they had the women's library, and they had an active community.
That's amazing. How long have you been involved with Spinster Haven?
I've been involved with Spinster Haven since they bought this house, and then I became uninvolved with Spinster Haven about 3 or 4 years ago because of their position on trans.
Yes, that makes sense. So you're not currently a member?
No.
That sounds good. So some of these questions are about Spinster Haven, and I think you would have a really interesting perspective being a member and not. So how has Spinster Haven evolved over time?
Oh, sorry about that.
You're good. You're totally fine.
I'll take this opportunity to close the door as well, so we don't get any background noise.
Repeat the question, please.
How has Spinster Haven evolved over time?
Well, I see Spinster Haven actually disinvolving. When it first started out, there was a person that died of cancer, but she was very active when Spinster Haven was purchasing the house here in town, Alice, and brought a lot of energy. There were a lot of people very energetic. Things were happening, dances, activities, poetry readings. But then the whole subject of transgender came up. And Spinster Haven would not take a definitive stance on that. And so a lot of us that see ourselves perhaps as trans or binary or whatever, just felt they couldn't support it.
Yeah.
Our Teresa Turk, that's on the city council here, had to remove herself from the rolls because she couldn't represent the public.
Yeah.
So that's what I see is that I see Spinster Haven really just fading away.
Yeah.
Unless some significant changes are made.
Yeah. A definitive stance
Yeah.
is made. Very specific. The good definitive stance is made.
I think we would all agree that it's the good one.
Yeah. 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 Thank you. I appreciate that. So, have you been a part of any other women-only spaces or spaces that were more feminist?
Well, I think now, of course, I think would.
Yeah, now that
Would,
is a great example.
When I lived in Washington, D.C., I helped start, and then we had the GLBT square dance group, which was men and women.
How was that?
That was fabulous.
Was it fun?
It was. It really was. And the folks got along so well. They really did. I remember this one fella, I was about 45 and he was about 65, but he loved to square dance. And for some reason, one weekend there was a square dance at the Pentagon, and of course he wasn't out, and he needed a partner. And so he asked me if I would go with him, and I should have known I was in trouble when he had 6 pairs of shoes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
I don't think we've heard of any square dancing.
We
yet.
haven't, not yet.
Where was that?
Washington, D.C. They have a huge square dance group there.
That's
We
amazing.
have founded. I was one of the founding members of that.
That's amazing. Was it a queer space?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, and you know, whoever was dancing the feminine, so-called feminine role or such, I mean, a lot of times they had their flouncy skirts and whatever, but you could just be whoever you were.
That's amazing. What made you want to start a place like that?
I'm kind of klutzy, and it was good exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that so much. When did you first come out as any form of queer, whether non-binary or lesbian?
Probably when I was about 35.
Mm-hmm.
I was a victim of incest by my father for a number of years, and had a lot of shame issues and all sorts of issues around that. And so I thought that any focus that I had on women was because of that.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with my sexuality, and that was back in 1970.
What are you looking for?
Our bodies ourselves wasn't
Oh.
even out yet, you know.
Oh, wow.
And there wasn't really much at all that you could find out about being gay or lesbian.
Yeah.
But I met a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's how the story goes, isn't it? You meet a woman.
Right.
And it's all over.
That's right. And I was with her for about 10 years, and then she died. And then about 4 or 5 years after that, I met another woman who I'm now married to.
That's amazing.
We've
How long?
been married.
How long?
We've been together for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and we've been married since 2019.
That's beautiful. Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see.
I have a question. I wanted to ask you about the women's library
Yes.
and your experiences with that.
The Women's Library was the internet of the gay and lesbian community, or the lesbian community, when I first moved here in '86. And anything that was going on was posted to the bulletin board. People are coming in, checking out books. It was a very active, almost like a women's center or a gay center. People would come in and hang out for the afternoon. It was open normally like 2 or 3 afternoons a week, and lots and lots of great books. And then the internet happened. And you could get books, and you could have them sent through the mail. If you couldn't get to DC to get to Lambda. And so the need for the library and its function really changed. And finally there just wasn't enough membership and everything to sustain staffing it and to pay the rent, that sort of thing.
Right.
And so we decided to close out the women's library. There was a lot of material there that were locally created pamphlets and different little newspapers, and we just all bundled that up and put it in special collections at the University of Arkansas. They were very...
So it's all there?
It's all there.
That's
and,
amazing.
Well, most all of it's there. Not all the books, because there were lots and lots of books, but we went through and kind of looked at the books, and the ones that were really meaningful, we made sure that those got included.
Where are the rest of them? Spread out?
It's just spread to the wind.
Has anybody told you about the Herland sisters?
Yes, and there were some materials in the women's library in the stacks.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, we actually our entire library collection is from their bookstore that they had. So it's a very similar.
I think it was a library.
No, it was a bookstore.
Oh, it was a bookstore?
Yeah.
So it's a very
very
similar
cool.
story
Yes.
to that, and we're really grateful to them for having those materials. That's why we're here today, honestly, because that's how we found Spencer Haven. So.
Right, and there were other groups prior to that.
What we do with our space sounds a lot like what the women's library was. We have a library, but it's also a social gathering place, so a place of like community.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes, thank you for sharing.
Thank you. So I wanted to ask you a question about separatism. So do you consider yourself a separatist? Have you ever? And what does separatism mean to you?
I don't consider myself a separatist. When you have a male grandson,
Yeah.
but even before that, I mean, I have some wonderful male relatives.
Yeah.
And I just can't discount that word. And the separatists that evolved here in Northwest Arkansas, some of them were not pure separatists. They had male grandchildren too. Some of them were just really ugly separatists. And would tell lies and attack the male community or transgendered, and I just couldn't tolerate that.
Yeah. When were they like that? Have they been like that for a long time? The ugly ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrible.
You know, and I really tried to talk to them and say, I will listen to you if you will listen to me, or whatever. I am not interested in educating myself at all, was my response. And you got that kind of response. I mean, that's like...
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We've asked everybody that question, so we've gotten a lot of different answers.
Bet you have.
Yeah. Believe it or not.
Definitely had some interesting ones.
There's a variety of them.
Yeah.
Also, are you warm?
I am a little bit, but that's okay.
Okay.
Do you want to turn it
We
back?
can turn it back on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's turn it on because we can hear fine. So it's
Yeah, it's not a problem.
That's why I was like fanning. I saw that you had a little bit of bead of sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do I. It's hot in
It
here.
is warm in here,
It
for
is
sure.
I think we can edit out the background.
Yeah,
guys.
we can.
Yeah, and it's
not a big
really
deal.
not that bad on there. Okay. So when you moved to Arkansas, what was the political and social scene towards queer people?
It was pretty negative. Of course, that was the height of the AIDS crisis,
Yeah.
and that had its own flavor. But the year that I moved here, that, and you'll hear different things on that, but there was a gay pride march.
Oh, really?
That was one of the original gay pride marches. There wasn't very many of us.
Mm-hmm.
My grandson, who was 5, led the march because, oh, we're going to do a parade, okay.
So you were there.
Yeah.
And your kids were, and your grandson?
My kids weren't there.
Your kids weren't. Okay.
Okay, my grandson was because his mother had a issue and a problem, so
Yeah.
he was staying with me. for a
I
while.
love that though. So how many people were at the parade?
Probably maybe 45,
Wow.
maybe.
That's larger than I thought it would be. That's amazing. What was it like?
For me, it was free. I had done big marches in Washington, D.C. when I lived there, and the big pride parade there. So I knew how liberating
Yeah.
it was. And back the next year or the year after that, I arranged for about 15 of us to, male and female, to go to D.C. for a big pride event. And a friend of mine had a condo, and she moved out for the weekend and let us have her condo.
Oh wow. That's awesome.
And it was life-changing for several people too.
I can't imagine. That's amazing. Oh, that's 45 people is a lot more than I was expecting. We've had people talk about pride parades, from earlier on that were like there was 12 people maybe. So that's really neat. That's very cool. So this is our last question, official question.
Okay.
So what is the most influential experience or memory that you have had through activism, with your activism? It's a big question, so take your time.
Well, I guess for me, ACT UP, because I was in DC and it was the big horses right by you,
Yeah.
and I remember those horses. Other than going to the marches, whether they be in DC or whether they be locally, gone over to Tulsa, I guess it was, over to their pride. Just being there.
Yeah.
By horses, do you mean like police horses?
Yeah. Yeah, they ACT UP. We were, not NIH, social services or something, one of the big buildings in downtown Washington. People were being chaining themselves to the building and different things. A lot.
That's amazing. I
Did
have
you-
a couple of questions. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
ask you, did you chain yourself to the building?
No, I did not.
I have a couple questions. I was curious because you said you were in Washington D.C. and then you came to Fayetteville, right?
Right.
So was it a lot different? Like the political climate, the social climate, was it a shock or was it, or just compare and contrast?
Well, it was, but certainly I expected it, that
Yeah.
would be a more closed community than Washington, D.C. I was pleased, at least at that time, that there was a real involvement with the men's and women's community, both locally and in DC. That was one of the things that was really necessary to me. Politically, we had an election either in 86 or 87 or whatever about the abortion issue. And we defeated the anti-abortion group, which was really a thrill, quite
That's
frankly.
amazing. Yeah.
That's a long time ago.
That's okay. It's difficult to hear about because a couple other people have mentioned the abortion, the success there, and so it's difficult for us to hear about that right now just because of what's going on. So I'm curious, as someone who was part of the original fight, if you have any advice for people who are sort of taking on that activism today.
Well, there's a book that was written in the 1940s, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It was about Chicago and how they handled their abortion fight and the things that they did. I remember driving from here. This was a battered woman that I had made arrangements to pick up and transport to Kansas City because she was afraid for her life, her husband. I remember picketing up at the Rogers post office, and this woman getting in my face and told me I couldn't be there and yada yada, and I said, "Hey, I'm legal, lady. I am legal." And she went and she gathered some people and came back, and they all tried to tell me I said, "You can contact the police or such, but I'm legal." And then I watched another woman and her husband. They had been really kind of mouthing off or whatever, and the woman puts her thumb up behind the man's back because she couldn't be publicly supportive, but she could be that. AIDS was such a big deal back then also. Lots of things kind of flooding through.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have any stories about people you knew or in the community that were affected by the AIDS epidemic that you'd like to share?
Well, there was, I can share this with you, but I don't know that I would want it to appear in the
Yeah, that's fine.
One of the women from out at Crosses was trying to get pregnant to have a child. I don't know if they...
Yeah, it's
We've heard
people
some.
have told us.
Yeah, it's a terrible
Tragic story.
story.
Yeah.
I mean, just so,
It's heartbreaking.
yeah.
But you were a big part of that activism too, right? You said.
Right.
What were some of the things that you did with that?
I was a buddy to 3 people. The one I said, I'll be a buddy to anybody, but don't give me a child. And so of course, I was a buddy to a child. And that was really hard. I would fly back with him to NIH every month. His mother was divorced from his father because when his father found out his son had AIDS, he got it through blood transfusions. The father divorced the mother. And So I would fly back with Gene once a month to NIH, and he would give his treatments. And then finally the treatments didn't work. Haven't thought about that one for a while.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But thank you for sharing that.
It's a hard life to live, to be an activist and to be a part of that.
Yes, but it's very fulfilling in many ways.
Yeah.
I think one of the things is that I remember this one person. His dad was a very religious person,
Mm-hmm.
and he was in the Washington Regional Hospital with AIDS and not expected to live, and so I got to tell his dad, and so we walked all over Fayetteville for about 2 or 3 hours before he went to see his son. And right before we got back to the hospital, he said, he says, I love my son. And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
We're all getting emotional.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing.
Well,
Those stories are really important.
they are important, and I do want to be able for you to end this interview feeling good. I do really appreciate these stories, and we want to hear them, and I want you to share. I also don't want you to leave feeling like crap and being like, why did I even go here? So what is one of the funniest memories you have with your activism? Something that was weird or goofy, or you just like, I can't believe that even happened.
Or just being in the community in general.
Yeah, it doesn't.
In a relationship.
Yeah, it could be a relationship. Something happened on a date, and you were like, "What?"
Oh, I am just drawing a mental blank.
That's okay.
You're good. Take your time.
Those stories used to just trip off my tongue.
It's okay if you don't remember. You can even talk about something that just makes you happy about your life with everything you've done.
I'm very happy to have come to an understanding that I am non-binary.
Yeah.
That has just really come about in the last 10 years in growing a better understanding of that, and that difference between being a lesbian and that difference between being this and this, and understanding that there's like 26 components that go into defining whatever. And I'm glad to see some of the world starting to come around and understand non-binary and take pride in it.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's beautiful.
I've also recently come to the realization that I identify with being non-binary as well. So I've really appreciated hearing your story.
A lot of us use both they, them, and she, her pronouns. I know I do.
I do as
You
well.
do, Mikkel
I
does.
use she, they pronouns.
Mhm.
I'm two-spirited.
Yeah, I just found that people use the pronouns to be divisive.
Yeah.
People that are non-binary, non-binary. There we
Yes.
go.
People that are binary.
Yeah.
And so I just say whatever, I'll answer to anything.
Then you can't misgender me.
And, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
all the
thank you so
stories
much.
and for coming here today.
Thank you.
And if anything else comes to mind that you think of, you can always email us. We have a little goodie bag that has our. Oh, we're.
Round of applause.
Alexis is like, we have this little goodie bag. Oh, you got it. And it's got a flag and a button and some info on our organization.
Okay.
Got some
And some stickers. And also on the pamphlet we'll have our supervisor's email, who was here but had to leave. And if anything comes to mind, or if you have any pictures of yourself during any of those times, you can snap a pic of it and send it that way.
Yeah, I did. I was honored to be the Grand Marshal of the Pride Parade.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Well,
being a survivor of incest.
yeah. That's amazing.
That was a large audience.
I bet. Well, if you
Very nerve-wracking.
yeah. If you have any
Actually, a friend of
that'd be
mine
awesome.
was more nervous for me speaking than I was.
That would be me. I'd be like, you gave them your own nervous energy. They took it for you, and that was it. And also, just to clarify, were there any other things that you didn't want to be included in the documentary? Okay.
Okay. Okay. Then I do believe we'll be sending this